So welcome to another HTML and CSS tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be creating a full HTML site from scratch, and we'll do it from start to finish. So what you're looking at right now is the site that we'll be building. It's by no means the best site in the world. It's just a very simple site, so you can kind of get to know what it's like to build a full site. And it's also very customizable, so you can put whatever you want in here. And I'm more than happy for you to tweak it or even use it as your own site if you wanted to. You can kind of tweak it, do whatever you want with it, change color scheme, anything like that. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating this page here. You see we've got this header bar with a logo space and this navigation, which you can easily add more items to or remove them. It's going to be kind of like a blog layout in a way, but I mean, once you finish this tutorial, it'll probably be a couple of tutorials in separate parts. But once you finish this, you'll be able to kind of customize completely what goes in this big white box. So you could have like a big featured slider thing, or maybe just some information, or you could have like a blog layout if you wanted to. You can have it however you want, really. So that's what I'm saying. You can do whatever you want with this site. Alright, so what we're going to be doing is we'll start off by coding this whole header and the navigation area. So what we're going to do is we're first going to create our header div. So this is going to have a div and an ID of header, and we just close off the div, and inside here we're going to have something called a container. So this is going to have a class this time, so we can use it more than once, and it'll be container. And what this container is going to do is, if I go back to the site, is it's going to basically mark out the space that can be seen on all screens basically. So you see the black bar extends. I'm going to extend it all the way over my 3 monitors, and it kind of extends to fill your site. So whether you're on 3 monitors and you extend all over 3 monitors, or if you're on this tiny little monitor, it will still fit. Right, so if you're on a monitor, on a really small monitor, it will show like that much. So yeah. So that's what the container is for. So div, sorry, we'll close off the div. Oh, okay, so inside this container, we're going to be having something called a logo area. These are kind of the naming conventions I tend to use, and this will be an ID because we're only going to use it once. It's going to be a div ID of logo area, and just close that div off. You actually don't need to put any space in between there because it's not going to have anything. Right, so the next thing we're going to have is a navigation area. So we're going to have a div and an ID of nav area. I'm going through this quite quickly because I'm assuming you know how to use divs. And you should know divs and classes and IDs as well. Okay, so that's our nav area. Now inside this navigation area, we're going to have an unordered list. Now, if you remember back to one of the previous tutorials, we looked at unordered list. It's basically like a big bullet point list. We're going to be using this to create our navigation, and you'll see why in a bit once we get started. So we're going to create a UL, as I just said, and we're also going to give this UL an ID. So that ID equals nav, and in here what we're going to do is li, and outside of this li we're going to be putting ahref tags, and we'll just set these to hash so that they're not going anywhere. So each of these list items should be surrounded with that, and for this we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so like that. And in here we can put the text, so we've got home, products, obviously you can change these to whatever you want, services, portfolio, and what's the other one? About. Right, so we're going to save this, and I'm actually going to launch this. This is site.html. That's what it looks like. Now, you're probably thinking that's not what navigation looks like. Why has it got bullet point list? Why is it stacking up? We're going to be sorting this with the help of CSS later. So, looking back at our previous site, what we're going to do, this is 100 pixels, this height here. So let's create the header with the background color and everything. So in our styling, what I'm first going to do is remove the margins. So for everything, I'm going to set the margin to 0 and the padding to 0. Right, like that. And what we'll do is we'll set the body, because you'll notice that in this we are using Arial as all of our text. So we'll set the font dash family to Arial. We also want to set the background color, so background to hash EB, 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 and that gives us that really light grey. So if I look at this now, we've got this really light grey as opposed to that white that we had a moment ago. And also we've got Arial, and you'll notice that there are no bullet points on here. That is because we are so close to the edge that the bullet points are kind of hanging over, so we don't see them because they're outside the browser window. So we still need to sort those. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is our header. So we're going to do hashtag header, give a background color of black. We'll give it a height of 100 pixels, because that's what it was in the other one. And the width will be 100%, so that it stretches across the entire page no matter how big your screen is. So if I refresh that now, this is black, and we've got this black bar going all the way across no matter how I stretch it. Right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up this logo area. Actually no, let's set up the container first. Container. And this is quite simply going to have width of 960 pixels, as this is kind of a safe width to have, so you've got extra space for your paddings and stuff. As the smallest monitors we kind of got today are 1024 wide, but we do 960 just to give us extra breathing room. And also, by the way, I think I'm getting a bit of a cold, so that's why I might sound a bit different. Okay, so the height we're going to set to auto, so that it can stretch no matter how tall it is. And the margin is going to be 0 auto. And that is basically going to center it, so it's going to have 0 pixels on the top, and it's going to be automatically decided for the side, so that will make it centered. So now if I refresh, we see that the navigation is now being pulled here, because our container starts here and probably ends somewhere around here. So the next thing we need to do is put our logo area in. So we're going to do hash logo, and I'm going to call this logo area like we did before. And we'll set the width to 300 pixels, because that's the size of the icon of the logo. The height to 100 pixels. And we'll also give it a background image. So image, set this equal to URL. Now for this background image, if I go over to here, I've got this logo.png in the root directory. Now if you're building a big site, then you might want to use an images directory, but to keep things simple, I'm putting it in the root directory. So you can see there, that's the logo. If you're wondering, that font is called 28 Days Later. You can download it. I'll put a link in the description, I guess. It's quite a nice font, and I thought I'd just put that there. So this is our logo. You're just going to make sure that the background color of this is exactly, like, it can't be slightly off at all off this. It has to be exactly the same. So in my case it's black, so it's quite easy to choose. I just got solid black, but if you're doing like blue or something, you need to make sure this the same shade of blue. Right, so let's go back to our site. Now you see that this is being pushed down here, and the reason that is because of floats. Now what I'm just going to first do is set our logo image, and then we'll sort that out. So the URL here is just simply logo.png, because that's the file type. So now if we refresh that, you see the logo is right there. These are gone red. Just ignore it. So there's our header bar, looking good so far. Now we need to get this to go and float all the way up here. So we can do that using floats, as I already said. The logo area is going to float to the left, so it's going to slide over to the left, and we need to style the navigation now. So for the navigation, we called it hashtag nav area. So the width. To figure out the width, what we're going to do is, you won't need a calculator for this, it's quite simple. We know that the width of our container is 960 pixels, so the amount of space this has is 960 pixels. So we're going to do 960 and then minus the space on the logo area, so that's 660 pixels, and that is how wide our nav can be. So it'll fit in there perfectly. We'll also set the height to 100 pixels, and we'll float it to the right. Save that, and let's run it. And you see this is now floated up to here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to style the actual buttons, and we'll get rid, first we'll change the colors of this, and we'll get rid of these dots next to them. So to do this, what we can do is we can go, our unordered list is called nav, so we're just going to style #nav, and we can use the list, this helps spell it right, list style, and set it to none. So what this will do, is that basically gets rid of all these the bullet points. So what we next want to do is we want to change the coloring. So to do this, what we're going to do is #nav and then a. So #nav a. So any links that are inside the nav, we're going to set the color to white, like that. So there you go. And let's also change the underline. So text -decoration. So normally if we were trying to create an underline, we put underline here, but instead we're going to set it to none to clear the underline that's already there. So if we refresh that, there's now no underline. So the next thing we want them to do is kind of go horizontally rather than vertically. So that's simple to do. What we're going to do is #nav li. So any list items that are inside this nav, and the nav being the unordered list, we're going to set them to float, and we'll float to the left. Now what this is going to do is it's going to make it horizontal. The next thing we want to do is add the margins, so we need to put the gaps in between these. That again is simple. We're going to do margin -left, and on the previous one, on the other side, we did 30 pixels. So now we're going to refresh this, and there we go. So the next thing we need to do is figure out why this about one is coming down here. So let's inspect the element. This is a really useful tool in Google Chrome. You can just right click and inspect element, or F12 or something, I think. So let's have a look in our header and our container, and our nav area, that is filling over onto there. So the reason that is let's have a look in our code. Which one is it? This one here. Our nav area, let's try and remove this width, see if there's an error there. Don't think there should be. That was the reason why. You don't actually need that width. If you don't use that width, then it will kind of float, sort of. I'll show you. Yes, you don't need that width. It will just auto expand based on how much is in there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a background color to this, and the background color for this is going to be #252525. Save that. Let's have a look at it, and you see we now got this grey color here, so that's looking good. We're going to set a padding, and this is going to be 8 pixels. Save that, and you see now we've got these square boxes around them. The next thing we're going to do is put a border around them, like a light sort of silver border. So we'll do border 1 pixel, solid, and silver. So now you see they've got this silver kind of border around them. Now you'll notice that before we had these curved borders, so let's add those in now. So after this we're going to do border -radius, and I just want to point this out, border radius is not really cross-browser compatible. Some browsers, I believe Firefox might have an issue with it. So for the purpose of this tutorial, we'll just use border radius, but if you're building a proper site, then you might want to look into using Firefox compatible ones and Internet Explorer compatible ones and everything. So we're going to set a border radius of 5 pixels. And there's the sort of curved corners there. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is sort of add this margin to the top of these buttons, so there'll be a bit of a distance there, so they're not right at the top. So we can do this by going and styling our hash nav, and for this we'll be using margin top 30 pixels, and that will get it exactly in the middle. Okay, so you see what it's actually done here is it's pushed this whole header down. So let's have a look why. It seems like float has been spot wrong. So maybe we should try that, save that. Let's refresh. Okay, so now it's all fixed itself. That is why we were having problems earlier, but it was because we spelled float wrong. So there, our buttons are looking really nice now. Now we're going to add the hover effects, because remember these ones, they change into a lighter grey when you hover over them. So let's do that now. So to do that we can simply use hash nav li, no sorry, hash nav li colon hover, and we'll set the background color to grey. Save that and let's run it, and we refresh, and now we've got these hover over effects on these buttons. I can close this as well now. Okay, so now our header is looking really good. That wasn't that hard, was it? So now what we can do is we can start styling the actual page. So for this page, I'm going to scroll down here. We're going to have a div right at the bottom here called main area. So we're going to have a div ID of main area. And in here, what we're going to have is a div class equals container. And it will actually have two classes, container and page. These are two separate classes. So this is where all of our content is going to go. Well, actually no, we're going to have another div inside here. Actually yeah, this is where all of our content is going to go. So what we'll do is I'm just going to copy all this content that I prepared for the other site. And I'm just going to drop it in here. Now this has already got all of our paragraph tags and everything in it, so we don't need to worry about that. These are just paragraph tags and heading 3s, and I'm just going to remove this line. So now if I run this, you see we've got all of our text, and I see what's happened here. This is kind of formatted all weirdly, but that's not a problem. Okay, so that won't make any difference, it's just the way the code is laid out, just to make it easier for us. Next thing we're going to do is style this page tag. So the container is already styled, that's what's going to center it and give us that 960 pixels, but we're going to style this page tag. So we're going to go dot page, because it was a class. And after this we're going to have a background color of white, because remember the background is like this light silver color. We'll have a padding of 20 pixels. And we'll leave it like that for now. So now if I run this, if I refresh, you see we've got all of this padding and everything like that, and everything looks good. Everything's working the way it should. So the next thing we're going to do is put our footer on. So our footer is really simple. It's just literally going to be div id equals footer, and inside here we're going to have a container just so it kind of centers. Div class equals container, And then here we can have all of our text that we want. So in my case, I'm just going to copy and paste the text that I had before, paste it in there. And there's our copyright notice. Well, you could put your own copyright notice in there, and also put who's maintains it. You can put whatever you want in there. So let's take a look at this. You see we've got this footer here. Now we need to make it black and put all the styling in. So we can go hash footer. And in here, it's going to have a background color of black, a height of 40 pixels, a width of 100 pixels, so we can, 100%, so it stretches across like the header. We also want the text color to be white, so that we can actually see the text, so like that. Now if we refresh it, you can see we've got our footer here, but we kind of want this padding, we want there to be padding above this text. That's quite easy. What we'll do is we'll do padding 20 pixels. You might need to just like trial and error this to figure out what a good padding is, but for this it's 20 pixels. Okay, so you'll notice here that the bottom is now very big. So what we're going to do is we're going to decrease this height. So I'm going to set the height to, sorry, let's just change this to padding desktop. Let's see if that works. Refresh. And we'll just change the height back to 40 like it was. And refresh, and that's looking perfect. So when you're making big sites like this, you kind of got to keep in mind that it's a bit of trial and error. You've got to trial and error with your values, especially with numbers and things. You got to see what looks good, what fits, and everything like that. One last thing, we want to add a bit of a padding to the bottom of these paragraphs. So we can start the p tag. And don't forget, if you're not going to have paragraphs in your site, then you won't need to worry about this. But I'm just going to simply do a margin dash bottom, and we'll set it to 20 pixels. So refresh that, and that's looking really good. So last thing we want to do is remove the padding that this page has at the bottom, because what we're actually having here is two sets of 20 pixels. So we've got 20 pixels from this paragraph, and then 20 pixels which is given by the page. So we're going to go to our dot page, padding dash bottom sets to 0, and let's refresh it. And you see what's happened here is now we have no padding at all. So we only removed the padding from the page, but now suddenly that last paragraph doesn't have any padding. So I found a way around this. We can just set this padding to 1 pixel here, and it will still look good. And you see it's all looking and it's all fitting properly. All looks good, and there's our site. So if you want to, you can go and add your extra pages, but I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate and subscribe if you found this series useful. If you do decide to use this as your real site, be sure to let me know what your site, tell me about your site below, and I will see you in the next video. And that brings this series to an end.